Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Skyrim. My name is Camel, but more importantly, welcome back to the Curating Curious Curiosities series for a long-awaited new episode. In today's video, I will be curating to you the curious curiosities that can be found within a lost and archaic region between Skyrim and High Rock, forged into the unseen heart of the Druidic Mountains. Of course, I speak of the Forgotten Vale. Before we get cracking, timestamps for each of the curiosities in this video can be found down in the description, so if you want to skip to any particular one, you can do just that. Down there are also links to my other Curating Curious Curiosities videos and my social media links. Be sure to check them all out. So, the Forgotten Vale, it's only playable with the Dawnguard DLC, and even those who have come here oftentimes rush through it. There is no map for the Forgotten Vale, it's treacherous with no respite and swarms of old and new enemies around every frost-capped hill. But today we play God and will be taking the time to thoroughly inspect the area. The Forgotten Vale is a valley which is surrounded by unscalable mountains, making it completely isolated from the rest of Skyrim and High Rock. It is split in two by a canyon. On one side is ancient forests, heavy with mist, hiding strange creatures and rare flora. On the other side, vast frost-bitten mountains and frozen lakes. Under millenniums of ice and snow, there are many secrets and points of interest to be explored. With its half-frozen waterfalls, spiring inverted towers of solid baubled ice flowing locked out of time. With its jagged, slippery and deathly cold cliffs bearded with icicles and peppered with an untouched beauty that yet still rings danger in our cautious hearts. Once the final bastion of the Snow Elves, or ancient Falmer or ancient Snow Elves, the permafrost-encrusted remnants of forgotten and untold stories lie scattered around this dale of forbidden fog, the Forgotten Vale. So without further hesitation, let the curation begin. For the first curiosity, we have the Troll's Nest. This can be found in the south of the forest found to the east of the Forgotten Vale. As soon as we exit the cave out into the wondrous strange Forgotten Vale, if we turn left and head up the hill, the mist and trees are hiding something. And I'm not trolling you, although he is. Yes, that's right, there is a frost troll up here, jumping and stamping around as frost trolls do. As we can see, this troll has slain some, or even much, of the local wildlife, with more bones adding to that number. The reason I call this a troll nest and not a troll den is because of this very curious, well, nest. I've never seen this before in a troll den, where they stack up a big pile of gnarled and dead branches, littering the remains of their prey across it, maybe even sleeping on it. Strange indeed, but nothing in comparison as to what we'll find later on. So let's leave this troll to it, as it was a lovely, easy way to break into the curious curiosities of the Forgotten Vale. Moving north from here, in the same forest, we have the Forgotten Vale Cave. While trudging through the hills and vaguely feeling our way through the thick curtains of fog, we'll spot a cave. Near its mouth we'll notice glowing purple flowers, an alien sight to the average adventurer. But as we raise our gaze into focus will come a Falmer, standing guard to the cave entrance. Inside there isn't too much of interest, although it would appear this cave is some kind of breeding home for the Chaurus. Towards the back of the small cavern there is a circular room lined with pods ready to burst with reapers. On the wall there is something interesting though, some kind of lever decorated with torchbug thoraxes which, when pulled, opens a secret stone doorway at the back of the cave, revealing a hidden passageway. At first there seems to be nothing of interest, but after making a sharp right we'll spot something very curious indeed. One of only 2 shellbugs in the game, giant larvae-looking blobs of gross bugginess. It can actually be mined, from which shellbug chitin is harvested, which is used to make the shellbug helmet. I'll have a guide for that helmet if you're interested. It's likely the Falmer that locked this rare and valuable creature back here, to later be harvested for its crafting materials. And as interesting as that is, quite frankly, the last thing my Skyrim needs is more bugs. For the next curiosity, we have the Spider Surprise, which can be encountered as we exit the forest through the narrow passage found to the west. And to no surprise at all, we will encounter 3 spiders guarding the only way further into the Vale. There is also a thin scarf of webbing holding up a desiccated corpse with gnarled and twisted limbs. This is a site of webbing. A website, as some might call it. There are also some spider egg sacs, so these 8-legged freaks have been breeding. But the real surprise is yet to come. As we attempt to pass through the crag, the Big Daddy Spider will drop down to greet us. No doubt the one responsible for cocooning this poor victim. Curious though, as only Falmer live out here in the Forgotten Vale, and this corpse does not look very Falmer-like. Perhaps someone else made it all the way out here, only to be feasted upon by a dirty old spider. Moving on, we have the Slumped Skeleton, as we come through the pathway heading west out into the open frozen wastes. The first thing that we'll spot is this skeleton slumped over a chest. The chest that the skeleton is leaning on contains random leveled loot. It would appear as they died, they dropped their purse of gold and this unknown ancient Falmer book, making an effort to protect the book, but ultimately failing. Little did they know that this book is absolutely indestructible, as it's been out here for thousands of years and is in perfect condition. Funny that it's just another page in the Forgotten Vale story. Flowing through to the next curiosity, we have Icewraith Fall, found just across the lake to the southwest from the Slumped Skeleton. At first, it's very hard to spot, as our eyes have many beautiful and distracting things to lay upon. But one may notice a strange ephemeral flickering as we approach the frozen waterfalls with tears of the lake above cascading down. A small nook can be spotted. Inside there is a skeleton, leaning on a chest and with a satchel on the ground in front of it. Both of these contain random leveled loot. There is also, and more importantly, an ice wraith in here. I think it's rather clear cut as to what happened. This snow elf thought that he had found an excellent spot to hide this chest, a tiny cranny carved into the ice. Upon laying the chest down, it was made clear that this is in fact the home of an ice wraith, which likely swiftly killed him in cold blood, now laying where his skeletal remains do, likely to remain there for all eternity. Now heading from here further down the river to the south, we have Frostbite. As we drift down, we'll spot, well, you won't believe it, another skeleton with a chest next to it and an apothecary satchel, both of which contain random leveled loots. Interestingly though, there is a dagger laying across the sitting skeleton's legs, implying that this person was resting when they died. Carried that heavy chest all the way down the hill, sat down to have a rest, laid their dagger across their legs so they wouldn't sit on it, arms back leaning on the rocks, then dead? But how? Well, if we approach the location, we'll discover just how. An ice wraith bursts out of the snow, ready to defend its territory. Undoubtedly exactly what put an end to this poor chump's life. For the next curiosity, we have Snowbound Betrayal. This can be found up the hill to the southwest of where we just came from, up on top of the frozen lake, with its howling winds sweeping across the icy plateau. As we approach, we'll clearly spot 2 skeletons in the snow, accompanied by what I can only assume to be a horse skeleton. What's really strange is the positions of these skeletons. One is laying face down in the snow with a greatsword wedged into its back, suggesting that it was run down and slain in combat by another snow elf as they used elven weaponry. Yet, the other skeleton is lying on its back with its hands up and face turned away, holding 2 resist fire potions, suggesting that this fellow was killed by fire. Mage, perhaps? Flame Atronach? Or even a dragon? Well, the latter is actually the most likely, as under this very lake there live 2 dragons, Voslarum and Naslarum. But if it were a dragon that killed them, why would this guy have a sword in his back? Strange indeed. Very hard to piece together. This story is just bad to the bone. Diving down into the next curiosity, we have the Footlocker Falls. This can be found in the southwestern region of the frozen lake at the base of a massive waterfall. As we can see, there is an opening in the ice where the falls terminate. Well, if we duck our little heads under the ice, we'll spot a chest. It was likely either thrown off of the waterfall or washed down. Either way, the massive fall would have resulted in it breaking through the ice and ending up where it is now. It of course contains random leveled loot, otherwise to be forgotten in the appropriately named Vale. Next, we have Chest to Chest. This can be found to the north of the waterfall, more towards the center of the lake, masked by its thick icy top. Under the water, we'll find something quite funny. A skeleton pinned to the ground by a chest, which contains random leveled loot. I must admit, this looks like a pretty grim way to die, pinned to the floor of the lake, drowned by the very treasure you were trying to save. It's likely that this person was carrying the chest across the frozen lake when the weight of them both broke the ice, resulting in what we can see here now. Speaking of the next curiosity, we have the Word of Winter, found to the northwest of the submerged treasure we just came from. There is a small bastion before the lake falls off of the cliff's edge into the river below, an outcrop with a set of stairs leading up to a rather important looking rock. On the stairs there is a skeleton with no clear signs or clues as to how it died. At the foot of the rock, there is a chest containing random leveled loot. There are also 2 resist fire potions and a healing potion. Now, the resist fire potions could once again suggest that the dragons came through here and immolated the remaining ancient snow elves. Most interestingly of all though, this rock is actually a word wall, suggesting that some ancient snow elves spoke the dragon tongue and inscribed its knowledge onto the stone. Or perhaps this was even here before the snow elves arrived. How long ago that would be, I do not know. When you approach the wall, you will learn a word from the Drain Vitality Shout. So it's absolutely vital that you do just that. Next, we have the loot of the lake, found just to the west of the word wall, once again under the ice. Next to 2 ancient pillars, there is a chest containing random leveled loot. While there are no skeletons or clues as to exactly what happened here, it's likely that it was dropped through the ice. Whether this was intentional or it just fell off a wagon or something of the sort, well, we don't really know. But what's more interesting is what's right near here. The muddy mortuary, found just to the south of the chest. As we swim closer and closer to what appears to be a bed of seaweeds, some alarming details will come into focus. Bones, more bones, a lot of bones, all the bones. It's almost impossible to try and figure out how many people lay at rest here, as none of the skeletons are whole. The bones seem to be scattered randomly, as if it's a mass grave or hecatomb. Is this a spot of sacrifice? Were the snow elves that barbaric? Or is this the location of a brutal slaughter? Women and children butchered and sunken under the frozen surface, to never be seen or remembered again. An act of barbarous cruelty. There are also some satchels down here, although they contain nothing that aids our curious case, as they only hold random leveled loot. What happened here? I truly don't know, but none of the possibilities are nice or heartwarming at all. In fact, they're absolutely bone-chilling. Best to just leave these here locked beneath the ice for the rest of eternity. Next we have the Pilgrim's Parish, found on the northern shore of this very lake. There is an archway which marks the starting point of the Pilgrim's Path up to the mountains. However, on the stairs in front of this, there is a skeleton with, you guessed it, a resist fire potion. Again, with the same questions: pyromancers, dragons, maybe they were vampires trying to resist the sun's effects. I'm not too sure, but it is suspicious that there have been 3 different skeletons found with resist fire potions. Not sure what it's about, but you could say that it has ignited my interest. Fructosing through the curiosities, we have Berried Alive. This can be found at the top of a big hill further north up the Pilgrim's Path. Lying atop this crest is a skeleton with a snowberry bush growing out of its ribcage. This is strange enough, as the body has literally been buried, but more interestingly, it's holding its hand up with a gold and sapphire ring presented in the palm of its hand. I have no idea how someone dies in this position at the top of a mountain, maybe presenting the ring to the gods above. In regards to the tree, maybe this person's last meal was berries. They died and then the seeds spawned right out of the poor guy's stomach. Anyway, next to this whole schmozzle is what appears to be a grave marker. We'll see a few more of these in the coming minutes, but it would appear that the Falmer have actively marked this grave. A strange and very confusing find indeed. Digging on through the curiosities, we have the Falmer Graveyard, found just to the north of the Berry Bush. As we approach the edge of the Falmer camp, there will be a gated pathway leading up into the mountains. Up the top there is a thick Falmer standing guard with a little hut in the background. But if we go west even further up the hill, we have what I can only describe as a graveyard. There are bones scattered about, and there are also several Falmer weapons on the ground too, suggesting that these were Falmer that died up here. Something that makes me think it is a ritual site instead of a graveyard is that the bones aren't exactly buried, they're just scattered about. Yet, there are these weird gravestone markers like the one we saw next to the Berryman. Maybe it's a graveyard, maybe it's a sacrifice site, maybe it's some kind of arena where they fight to the death. While we can't be certain, we can confirm that plenty of Falmer have died here. Memeing through the list, we have the Tide of Pods. This can be found along the shores of the river to the south that travel through the narrow Falmer Valley. All along the edge of the water on the snowy and sandy shores of this river, there are Chorus Reaper pods. It's likely the Falmer are growing them here intentionally to be used later in their attack forces. Or these could be here naturally. Either way, bring a big old can of bug spray and get rid of this filth. Swinging on through, we've got the Hanging Offerings. Found on the stone platform above the filthy ponds we just came from, we can find a gang of offerings, a stone outcrop where the Falmer have placed various items and bits and bobs that I assume are some kind of offerings. There is also one of those gravestone markers here that we keep seeing, but there's no body. Or is there? If we take a closer look at the side of the mountain, well, you'll guess what we can find. A hanging offering. This, to me, is quite strange. It probably wasn't a suicide because the grave is marked, as we saw at the top. So perhaps this was a punishment, a death sentence? Trying to figure out whether this was a Falmer or a human, it's just impossible to tell. Maybe it was a depressed Falmer. We've seen depressed and even suicidal creatures in the Elder Scrolls before, like the suicidal troll from Oblivion. I did cover that in my Oblivion's Easter egg video if you are interested. As for this skeleton though, at this point it's just impossible to say who they were and why they were killed. Picking very carefully the next curiosity, we have a minor discovery, found on the cliff ledge just below the hanging skeleton. Now on the cliff face there is a gold ore vein right nearby, and the clear remnants of someone once mining here. This could be ancient, or this could have been done minutes before we arrived. Although it's hard to imagine Falmer mining gold, as I've never seen any evidence of them using it. However, the baskets that the gold ore is contained within are of Falmer make, so we should expect to soon see Falmer rocking around with pimping golden jewelry. Just above it as well, under a cliff face, there are signs of a Falmer burial site with various bones, weapons, and armor, all Falmer, of course. Now just above this minor find and up under the pointiest of slopes, there is an unmarked cave. This is Sharpslope Cave, which is no blunt cave. Inside we can find some general Falmer life. There is also a hidden passageway at the end of which is housed the second shellbug in Skyrim. But what's more interesting, to me at least, is the colouring of some of the rocks in here, the likes of which we only see in Blackreach, which famously has Ethereum. So, if we can find similar rocks, does that mean that this cave also houses Ethereum? Pure conjecture, but a very interesting thought given Ethereum was such a rare mineral and there were literally wars fought over it, so to think there is a whole bunch of it possibly sitting around in the caves under the Forgotten Vale, it's a very stimulating thought, and I mean that in the dirtiest way possible. Next we have the Jeweled Skull. Before we depart from this Falmer village in the Glacial Crevice, there is one more gleaming find that caught my eye. Out of the way and above a hut, crowning a tor, there is some weird looking shrine to nothing other than a troll, as there is a pelt laid out with garnets sprinkled around with a troll skull as the centerpiece. Maybe the Falmer were worshipping it. I'm not sure if they have any religious veins in their culture, but judging by this, it might be similar to the Reiklings, who just worship any random old tat. So if you've ever wondered why you hate the Falmer so much, this might explain it, because they worship trolls. Now, to continue on seeing the curious curiosities of the Forgotten Vale, we'll have to make our way to a place called the Falmer Fissure, and the only way to do so is to head up the extensive Glacial Crevice. But once we make it out into the fissure, there are even more ancient and forgotten wonders that can be spotted. The first of which is the Mammoth Mount. Found in the northwestern reaches of the Falmer Fissure. Here, hidden under snow and ice, we can find the remains of a mammoth. This is actually super curious, as this area is almost impossible to get to for a humanoid, let alone a mammoth. This kind of area is definitely not their natural habitats. They need tundra where they can herd and graze on grass, none of which is anywhere near here. There is also the remains of what I could only imagine to be a snow elf, and it's right next to the mammoth as well. Strangely, there is also a skull inside the mammoth's ribcage. Maybe this is a Star Wars Easter egg. Did this mammoth eat someone? I'm not sure. But what this implies is that maybe the ancient snow elves used mammoths as mounts. Given the location, as it's nowhere near where a mammoth would normally be, and the grouping of the bones, that's probably the most logical deduction of the information provided. And if we have discovered something new about the ancient snow elves, then this is a mammoth discovery. Next up, we have the Valley of Thrush. No, it's not what you're thinking. For no good reason, there are unusually large amounts of thrush nests that can be found throughout the Falmer Fissure, 13 in total, making it a thrush-infested valley, a sentence I hope none of us ever hear again in our lives. Oh yes, now we have the major minor discovery. Found right underneath the ancient snow elf bridge which spans the Falmer Fissure leading over to the Chantry of Auriel, on a small ledge there lies a number of fascinating finds. There is a gold ore vein and the remains of the last person to mine it. As we see, there is a pickaxe here, and for some reason there is one unit of powdered mammoth tusk. Well, I mean, mining is one hell of a tusk. I would say that this was an ancient snow elf, but there is a Falmer weapon suggesting that this was in fact a Falmer mining this gold, which again is very strange because I've never seen any evidence of Falmer using gold. But we can find a gold and ruby necklace laying next to the skeleton, so perhaps this Falmer not only liked gold, but liked jewelry. We can also find 2 gold ore pieces and 3 diamonds that were likely mined out by this person or Falmer and placed here as winnings. Sadly, something happened to them and they never got to walk away with their beloved findings. Oh yes, a classic. This curiosity is the ancient Falmer royalty. Now I'm sure we all know the Chantry of Auriel, or the temple as you may have heard it called, but did you know that off to the side there is something wondrous strange? Following a small mountain path off to the side and through the archway out on the tip of this outcrop there is a skeleton. Now if you have seen my Dawnguard DLC Easter egg video, then you'll know this one. Now this isn't just any old skeleton either, this is likely the remains of an ancient snow elf king. The elven weapon essentially confirms that it was an ancient snow elf and not a modern day Falmer. And as we can see, there is a crown on top of their head, suggesting it was a king or queen, perhaps even the last in their line of ancient snow elf royalty. If you're thinking about picking up the crown, don't get too excited. Not that we're meant to know this, as you need to clip through the ground to see this, but the crown is actually made out of a soul gem holder with 3 gems simply placed on top of it. So that's why you can't actually pick up the crown as a whole, because it's not its own item. Regardless, this is an awesome piece of ancient snow elf history, and is sadly now lost to the ages, as we'll never know who this was or how they died. And now to finish off the video, we have something very special. There are what are known as the 5 Paragons. There are 5 frost giants hidden around the Forgotten Vale. When each of them are killed and looted, they will be carrying one of the 5 Paragons. I won't go into detail as to where each of them is situated, as it's not curious at all in the least, and only slows down the fun here, but I'll have a guide for them to aid anyone interested. For the sake of this video, I've already collected them all, so now all we need is a Paragon Portal, and the Forgotten Vale houses one, found in the mid-north of the Forgotten Vale. Firstly, let's go through the Amethyst Paragon to Darkfall Grotto, specifically to an otherwise inaccessible area high on a cave pillar, decorated beautifully with giant glowing mushrooms and ancient snow elf pillars. There is also a draft of strength next to the chest up here. The chest contains random level loot. Not entirely sure as to the purpose of this place, such an intense technology to simply teleport to some weird cliff inside a cave. I mean, it's cool, but it doesn't really make much sense for the ancient snow elves to go to so much effort to take people here. Yay, a rock in the middle of a cave, yay. Anyway, next up we'll go through the Paragon Portal to the Glacial Crevice. On an equally confusing note, this will take us to a super high and again otherwise inaccessible area, with the remnants of ancient snow elf structures and down the path another chest which contains random level loot. But once again, such effort and technology and magic to take us to a place that isn't very impressive. Maybe it was once much more to behold, but now it just seems a little bit dangerous. You could slip. Now we'll go through the Ruby Paragon to the Forgotten Vale Forest, an unreachable area of the Forgotten Vale, high up in the northern mountains of the Vale, amazingly a forgotten area, well, even more forgotten than the rest of it. Quite frankly, this area is beautiful, but we are not alone, as down the hill we can find a frost troll cave, which isn't amazing, but not even this troll is alone, as up the hill to the north, after pushing our way through the branches of this frozen wonderland, we'll spot some ancient snow elf ruins, with a troll, a chest, and a Falmer warmonger. The chest has a skeleton leaning on it, likely the carrier of Auriel's shield, trying to place it here in the most hidden location possible. Now the reason that I say this is because this Falmer is actually carrying the shield. I'll have a full guide on it for those interested, but it would seem that the shield was not safe. The Falmer took it, and now even the trolls are trying to get some of it, as the Falmer can be seen fighting them off. With 2 dead around him, we'll leave them to their battle for the most inaccessible location in the Druidic Mountains. Next we'll go through the Sapphire Paragon to the Inner Sanctum. This is an absolute treasure, this one, quite literally. This place is the forgotten vault of the ancient snow elves, and is absolutely beautiful to lay your eyes upon, with the fractured strands of light reaching through the windows into the room from the shattered frozen wastes outside. Little do the rays know what they are falling upon, glimmering troves of value. 3 chests in total with an assortment of elven armor and weapons, but most stunningly of all, gems, jewels, more carrots than a vegetarian's diet. Needless to say, loot all of it. You'll go to your ancestors happier for it. For those curious for the immense value within this room, I looted 1 ruby, 14 garnets, 1 flawless ruby, 4 flawless garnets, 1 flawless emerald, 4 flawless amethysts, 1 emerald, 2 diamonds, and 4 amethyst. That's a total value in gems alone of 6,700 gold. That's not bad at all. This Sapphire Paragon, it's a pretty good one. And finally, the Emerald Paragon, which will take us to the Forgotten Vale Overlook. I've saved what I believe to be the most fitting way to end this, with a beautiful view high up above the waterfall that flows down into the frozen lake we saw earlier. This is the Forgotten Vale Overlook, a place often overlooked or not even looked at all, as its location renders it rather occult. There are some beautiful icy blue rapids flowing down across the rocks. There are remnants of ancient snow elf ruins. To think what once stood here, what was this place? If we head down the rapids, it seems like a fruitless effort, as we'll just be shot off the edge of the water and plummet to our deaths or a frosty plunge. But just before the end, there is a bastion of safety. Off to the right, some trees, some rocks, and some flat ground, with many curious findings. A sword, an unknown ancient Falmer book, elven arrows, an enchanted bow, a skeleton, and a chest, which, as you guessed, contains random level loots. A collection of intriguing items. The elven greatsword and the elven arrows imply that this was an ancient snow elf that died here. Like the other book bearer at the start of the video, likely trying to make sure that the book was protected, to be passed down and teach the histories to the future generations to come. And while the book stayed intact, no one has found it for thousands of years, and its knowledge has not been learnt. A sad and noble move in an attempt to preserve the memory of his or her people. How were they killed? I think they just let themselves perish here. To be killed by another would mean to be found by another, which is exactly what they did not want. Dying alone in the name of preservation. But at least for them, this spot has a beautiful vista looking out over their homeland as they passed. And with that final, ironically unforgettable view, the curating of curious curiosities within the Forgotten Vale has been completed. I do hope you have thoroughly enjoyed this utterly unique region of Tamriel, with its ancient ruins, unique wildlife, frost-bitten peaks, wind-swept lakes, glacial waterfalls, and misty bosks. I do hope I have been able to show you something new that you did not know existed within the Forgotten Vale. I certainly discovered some interesting new things. So whether they were old friends or new acquaintances, I do hope you have enjoyed the curious curiosities of the Forgotten Vale. Thank you very much for watching. I've been Camel, and I do hope that you have thoroughly enjoyed the Curating Curious Curiosities video for the ancient region of the Druidic Mountains known as the Forgotten Vale. If you did enjoy this video and you would like to see more videos similar to this one, please consider subscribing. It helps me know that people are interested in these kind of videos and in the long run will result in more of them. And if you do enjoy these CCC videos, please feel free to check out the links in the description. These of course will lead you directly to the Curating Curious Curiosities that I've already done for Skyrim. If you did learn something new in this video, please leave a like, I'd appreciate it greatly. If you have any theories, backstories, imaginings, or explanations for any of these curious curiosities, please leave a detailed explanation of what your thoughts are in the form of a comment down below. I'm very interested in hearing some of your explanations for some of these ever so strange and curious finds within the Forgotten Vale. The community's collective mind power is much greater than mine. Well, I'd hope so anyway. So hopefully together we can all come up with the backstories for these strange findings. So again, check out my other CCC videos down in the description, and down there in the description you can also find links to all of my social media. Be sure to follow me on Instagram and Twitter. And if you'd like to support the channel in a more personal way, you can of course become a heroic patron on Patreon. As I'm sure you know, all of my time and energy goes into making these videos that I create for you to enjoy, so your support is most appreciated and welcomed in any and all forms. So thank you very much for watching, thank you for supporting the channel, and I will see you very shortly in the next video. I'll see you there soon.